It's Sunday morning, ladies and gentlemen, and you know what that means. Not your normal Sunday show with our Wayne Steiger. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, somewhere in an undisclosed location deep in the heart of flyover country. I'm under the radar, but over the top, and as usual, Wayne is always Wayne.
Still here. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I really am. I'm doing excellent.
Excellent. Excellent. Haven't seen you in a little bit. Last week had an internet connection and but hey,
Or
back
didn't
in
have one, as it were.
lack thereof would be
Yeah,
probably
I
more.
guess Rex was driving around in his car doing shows because he didn't have internet either.
It was like I don't know what happened. And it was odd because earlier it was not a problem. Get around showtime, boom. You know.
Funny
They're
how that happens.
listening. They're listening.
Funny how that happens.
It is. So, hello everybody. Look at we have from Japan.
Oh, yes, there he is.
Yeah.
That's Sterling from Japan.
Sterling, good to see you, my friend.
People
Tom
from
Thomas.
everywhere. Wayne, I've had a transformational week.
Is that right?
I have.
In what
And
manner?
it's from the from the oddest thing. You'd never guess what has sparked it.
Okay.
Every day I've been going out and I've been chipping out this hole in the lake and I've been jumping into the 33, 34, 35 degree water.
You know, I have a cardiologist friend that would tell you that that's, can be stimulating, also going to be very shocking.
It is both, I guarantee you, but it is
Yeah.
also invigorating and activating. And I think it pushes out anything that you don't want in,
Well,
spiritually speaking.
I could see a connection to that. You know.
Because I got to now where I hold myself under for 5 seconds. I'm building up, and
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting.
Yeah. The martial arts teaches the same thing. You know, the body can be disciplined and the body can be made to do extraordinary things. I would agree with you, but that's not my
Very,
cup of tea.
very. Wait, you could probably do it right there in Colorado too, very easily.
Yeah, everything is frozen here, well frozen. So, but no, my path leads in a different direction. But I'm glad, that it works for you and that it's having a very positive effect.
It is. Explain that poster behind you to me.
Well, we always keep hearing all the doom and slayers, all the people saying the end of the world. And, the evolution of man is ever evolving into a degradation more than a progression. And that poster represents that even if we fall off the cliff, we're going to land on our feet.
I like it, just like cats.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
There's
going
a
to
Vanilla
be,
Sky quote in there somewhere, but I can't find it right
yeah.
now. I'll
And
see you in the next life when we both come back as cats.
it's it's very interesting. I have been doing in the last since the beginning of the year. Um, I've had this insatiable appetite for gaining. I've really been on a path seeking something, and so been deeply reading. And besides what I do on my shows, it's been very revealing in many different ways.
And people are asking about Rooney. Rooney is alive and well.
Yeah, where is Rooney?
The reports of Rooney's demise are greatly exaggerated. He's downstairs. He's fine.
Okay,
But
how's he adapting to the Midwest?
well, he's adapting to the Midwest fine, but it's trying to adapt him to a great big golden doodle and a great big German Shepherd.
I'm telling you, it's the end of the world. Dogs and cats living together. What is happening?
So we're figuring that one out. So that's why Rooney's not walking around the the studio.
They'll eventually work that out. They'll find their space, and
They will. I will
takes time.
I will do a Rooney proof of life video later today. I promise.
Well, good. So, everything well, and are you enjoying the cold?
Strangely enough, I am. It's funny because if I'd have stayed in, Florida, if I hadn't come out here, I would have never discovered cold plunging, and now I'm an advocate, a big time advocate. I'm gonna start the course from that guy. I forget his name, Wim Hof or something. He's like the original Iceman dude, and he teaches it along with breathing techniques and exercises and stuff. So it's gonna be transformational for me.
Well, good, good. Enjoy the journey. That's what I say.
I am enjoying the journey. It just, I mean, we spend so much time talking about how bad our reptile part is and trying to fight our reptile part. And sometimes we got to remember that reptile part is made to keep us alive, to keep us vibrant, to keep us safe. That fight or flight's there for a reason. And I think when you get into those places where you activate it, it does everything it can to make you optimize. Any bacteria is going to kill it. Any walk-ins is going to push them out. I mean, it magnifies your endocrine system, your circulatory system. I mean, things become sharp. It's a very profound experience.
I would just say a word of caution: go to your doctor and make sure that you are physically able to do that, because seriously, you don't want to have yourself an issue that may be unbeknownst to you.
Yeah, and I was actually just jumping in before, and in deference to some people that said be cautious, I'm actually going down a ladder now, holding on to the bottom of the ladder, dunking in, and then pulling myself back up. So it's a little more of a controlled descent. So I'm not going to drift off under the ice, because the ice, I mean, it's 2-3 inches thick, and I got to bash it out. It's pretty interesting.
Well, happy trails, as they would say.
Happy trail. So what's going on in your world, Wayne? I know you're not jumping into ice water.
No, doing just a lot of reading, Jeff. Lots of reading. Went in nearly almost 800 pages yesterday. So,
wow.
Just been on a quest, and things are congealing. It's quite interesting. I've been focusing this whole week over on my channel on the mythos of Satan.
Oh, nice.
Lucifer, the devil. How they're imaginary characters. They don't exist. They can't exist. There's no way that they would logically, even spiritually, be able to exist.
Triona over in Ireland is doing plunging as well, Wayne, up to her knees this whole week.
Well, there you go. It's stimulating. Just, take it easy. Take a deep breath. Although it's amazing if you do. Anyway, so it's been very stimulating. There's a good word.
Yeah, somehow I missed those. I haven't seen you do that. I've been kind of deep this whole week. To me, has been about the tabernacle, the temple, and how they're actually portals to bring in demonic spirits. And one might have been trapped here since the temple got destroyed in AD 70. And if we could find him, we could put him back into balance, Wayne, and make him not a threat anymore. He's got to be super weak.
Yeah. One of my videos on the subject was restricted. They felt that they've actually said that the content was too intense for the average viewer.
Yeah, every one of mine gets that now, usually. And then they'll review it and it comes off.
No, this one's on permanently. They said after multiple manual reviews, because I thought, what's up with this? But the point is that, I don't think anyone can ever be truly free until one is truly free of the fears that so embed our psyche. And in religion, in man, we have been taught that you have to accept a God. We've been taught that there is an enemy of God. And if you have all of these things going for you, then now you have this bucket of list of different religions you can choose. But the foundation of that is that you are told that you have to believe in a God. And that's why many people choose atheism, as opposed, because they feel like they're in a box. But let's get to the mythos of this, of Lucifer, Satan, the devil. I showed my audience in I presented it as a law case, as if I was taking a case before a judge and a jury. And the bottom line of the summation is this: the evidence is overwhelming that shows the Christian God is in fact the Lucifer that we have been warned against. Everything that the Christian God says that the Lucifer God or devil or Satan did is exactly what the God of the Old Testament, in fact, committed.
Well, at least you're wearing the proper attire this morning, Wayne.
I am. Yeah. So, when I've been reading this book, about to finish it, Gods of Eden. It's a great book.
I've got that book.
I would encourage you to read it. It's a fiction mystery, but Gary did a great job of how he incorporated the story. And so it comes down to this. If we look at the Hebrew God, then if we take it back, the Hebrew God said that he was an Elohim. Specifically, Yahweh is what he called himself, which denotes there are many multiple Elohims. If you look at this, then the Christian God, all the world gods, that's the thing I've said. I've said this for over 3 years now. Either all religions are wrong or all religions are right. You can't have one religion that would be right and the rest wrong. And so it's been a conundrum. Well, how can they all be the same? Well, if Enlil is in fact an Elohim, a Benai Elohim, specifically, Benai Elohim, the Elohims, then Lucifer would be an Elohim. Would he or would he not?
He probably would be.
Satan would be an Elohim.
I agree.
So we have a conundrum here. So how can we have these Elohims who I do believe, if you look at the evidence, the star children, the artifacts that we have found in these digs in Zimbabwe, Africa, where we know mankind started, at least so Homo sapiens sapiens. And, it has been rumored that they didn't find the most unusual thing in there, and that was the skull, the cranium of an Elohim. And the implications of this is deep, because if we have found a skull of an Elohim, and it is said that the test that they did on it, the DNA test, showed that they are a silicon-based life form, that they have longevity that basically us carbon life forms, and interestingly enough, a silicon-based life form will express itself in a carbon-based signature. Now, what makes this skull so interesting was that the cellular structure is all the same. Ours is different. Ours is designed to degrade. As we get older, as we age, it is designed by the code to make us old. But the cranium of the Elohim that has been discovered, or supposedly,
interesting,
is that...
Of course, you know me, I want more data, Wayne.
Well, go and read. That's what I always say. Go and read. Do the research. And so the cellular structure of the Elohim show that they basically don't die. However, they do die if they're injured or blunt force trauma of such. That would kind of explain a whole lot, like Psalms 82.
My question would be, an Elohim, from my study, is essentially a spiritual being, and if they choose, unless they choose to manifest physically, they're probably beyond killing physically.
It's very interesting. Now, I happen to think that they are a race. I just think that's all they are. They're a species, advanced, not like us. They have the ability to create life. I think that, and this is just what I've been reading, it's still congealing, that we were nothing more than pets. God does not look at mankind as his crowning achievement. We are, if anything, about the same difference as a pet. And the fact is that when they created us, what happened was they didn't expect us to have a spirit. It was never expected to have a spirit. And for some reason, this us, we developed spiritual capabilities. Now, it's very clear that they took us from an ape. And I know people don't want to hear that, but the DNA, the Human Genome 1, Human Genome 2 project shows conclusively that the difference between us and the apes are less than 3%.
Can we say the difference between these bodies and the apes are less than 3%?
Well, that's where they got the bio signature from. Mm-hmm. And as you'll read,
that we're not these bodies. So we are actually something else, and these bodies are a different thing.
Well, the consequence is that we ended up with a soul or a spirit. Depends on how you want to do it. Maybe both. But the Elohim weren't expecting that.
Right. And I would say that we were created that way, and it's not, we didn't end up with one. We were one, and we ended up with a body.
Yeah, it's, if we were, I think Genesis clearly states, I believe in my thesis, in Genesis 2:4, that we were a slave race.
That's right. But Genesis 1:26, 27, 28 shows we were created in the images of.
I don't think that's the same people. I don't think that's us.
I think that we were tricked into these bodies. I think it's us. The 1:26, the Genesis 1 people were tricked into the bodies created in Genesis chapter 2.
That's an interesting, yeah, I have a little different take. Whoever the 6-day people were, we know that they had no, according to the Genesis story, which came from the Chaldeans, which came from Mesopotamia, but we'll back it up. But the fact is, they didn't have any sin. Were they the angels? Were they us? The thing is, the Gnostic Christians, the Essenes, they believed before they were wiped out by the church, that we are divine angels. We are archangels trapped by this Elohim.
And that's exactly what I would pretty much state, and maybe not quite that language, but Mark Center Saint says 2 separate creations. I say from a strictly textual standpoint, absolutely. There's no other way to explain it. And as Stephanie says, I think we were tricked into these bodies. I've written a book about it called Serpents and Dove in the Garden of the Gods. I think that lays out a fairly good case.
It appears that something happened. We know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, go back to Göbekli Tepe, right, in Turkey. We now know that there was Homo sapiens here at 12,000 BCE. So when the comet hit, we know the comet hit, it was a life extinction event. It's so interesting that the Elohim call themselves the Cedars in this particular boat. And that's one of the translations of what Elohim means, cedars. So think about this. We know a comet hit Earth about 11,800 BC, and boom, man appears again. In China is where it looks like, or if depending on what side of the story, here we are back in Africa. And that's where the earliest. Yeah. So, the Elohim, I think, came again. I think that we got part of the story in the Sumerian tablets, in the mythos.
Here's a good point, Wayne, that I've never thought about. Dan Lyson says that in Genesis 2, it says the gods put Adam into a deep sleep, but it never says he woke up from the dream. That's an interesting point to ponder.
Mind candy. It is.
That's an interesting point to ponder.
Go ahead, buddy.
And this kind of goes into something I've been thinking about, and I'm probably going to talk about today. We have so much of this Christian mythos that so permeates our society, so permeates our world, that even when we think we're out of it, we're still in it and patting ourselves on the back for being in it and thinking it's beautiful. Just like this thing, Wayne, about enter in at the straight gate. We all are seeking for the we're all seeking for the straight gate. We don't want the wide gate. We want the narrow gate. Ladies and gentlemen, they're both gates, and all gates lead to traps. We're supposed to blaze our own trail. Quit looking for the narrow gate. It's a trap, just like the wide gate. They don't care what gate you go into, just as long as you go into a gate. No gates, blaze your own trails. Am I completely crazy, Wayne?
Oh, no. You were talking, I remember decades ago listening to John Hagee, And he actually had a good teaching on the 12 gates, you know.
Did he have any powdered sugar on his chin?
I think it was down on the belly. That was back in the day. But, you know, his point was, and as I sit here and you were saying, people don't understand that, what that reference is. It all leads in, folks. It don't lead out.
And something else, Wayne, that people don't understand is, oops, did I just mute you? Are you muted, Wayne?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, good. People don't understand the meaning of the word Hebrew. Hebrew, I thought loosely in my mind that it meant the people from the other side. But when you really get into it, it means the people from another land. So the Hebrews came from another dimension, and they are a separate people from a separate dimension.
Well, I know that they have a separate contract.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and
from another realm is what it means. My bad.
Yeah, from another realm. Makes, if you look at Moses, you know, and it's always amazing me, you know, my Hebrew friends, my Jewish friends, as back in the day taught me, they said, what makes you Gentiles think that you own Moses? You know, it's like they say you dressed him up into a Western suit and you said, here's Moses. And never realizing that Moses was, if he existed, I think that, you know, you can debate whether the record shows that he did or did not, but I happen to think that he did, but I happen to think that he was also a master of the Brotherhood of the Serpent.
Absolutely. He was definitely a master magician. And it's my considered belief now from all my study that he actually recruited this being called Yahweh to help him defeat Egypt. And they made a deal. That's when they became God's quote unquote chosen people, as they made a deal with an extraterrestrial being.
It's the only way it can be. When you get to a certain point, God is an ET.
Yeah.
And I don't think
this guy that we call God, this guy that we think is God, this guy that's calling himself Yahweh, Wayne, he's got a boss.
Mm-hmm.
That boss's name is Azazel.
My personal
world, we're just living in it.
I think that Yahweh screwed up, and I think Yahweh's in the penalty box.
I think Yahweh may definitely be gone, which begs the question, is Azazel running things now? But he's so weak. If he came in, and I think I've proven that on the Day of Atonement, at least, probably on all of the high holy days, they opened the door of the temple. It was a portal, and Azazel came in. And I don't know why, but every year they had to bring him back in a few times. So that tells me he must have had some limitations within this world, or the need to go back and recharge. And if he came in AD 69 or 70, depending upon the dating and the timing of the
Are you meaning when Titus
before the last time he came through was before Titus destroyed that temple, and he hasn't been able to get out. So does that mean he's been degrading all of these years? He could be as weak as a little kitten. He could be weaker than a Rooney.
Have you ever studied the cult of Bacchus?
I have not studied the cult of Bacchus, but you're the second person that's mentioned that name to me in the last 2 weeks.
We're not going to talk about it here. Our audience is not mature enough yet, I think, to fully grasp it. I tried to introduce it to the fact of my audience, and many people couldn't handle it. The cult of Bacchus is what you're talking about.
You think so, huh?
Oh, I absolutely. They're the ones who invented the whole Jesus story. They're the ones who invented the whole narrative. They've been around for as long as man has been around. This goes deep. We know that the Flavians, we know the Herodians, we know that the Alexandrians were the most prominent families in trade. They were all part of the cult of Bacchus. The cult of Bacchus set up their place of worship in Rome. And it is said that through the cult of Bacchus, and when Titus took the temple, when Josephus gave him the plans of how to get into the sacred parts of the temple, and people don't ever ask, how did the Romans know where to go into these traps, these things? That temple had pathways that only the priests knew about. Anyway, they got the sacred scriptures of the Jews. They took it back to Rome. It took them 40 years to build the story. And what they did, they took it all the way back from Dionysus as the one who was crucified, going all the way back to Osiris and Hathor. And
one thing people don't realize, Wayne, is that Titus was the general that destroyed the temple and took Jerusalem, and his second in command was a Jew whose father gave the money and drew up the plans for the construction of at least the doors of the temple. That's why they knew about how to break through the doors, why they knew how big.
Tell people how big those doors were, Jeff.
Of all the trap doors and everything. Yeah, so it was an inside job. A Jew destroyed the temple in Jerusalem.
Yes. People don't study that. What Titus did, in his father Vespasian. It's said that when Titus went to the Rome Senate, when his father died, and invoked the Senate to make Vespasian a Caesar, a god, that made Titus the son of God.
Yeah. Now you sound like my friend Joe Atwell.
Well, you just look at history. So who were the first that the cult of Bacchus went after? They went after the Essenes. Why? Because it was the Essenes who held the knowledge. They had the more
interesting, Wayne. I knew that there's a reason I wanted to look this up. The siege of Jerusalem was in 70. It was led by the future emperor Titus and his son, his second command, Tiberius Julius Alexander.
I'm sorry, Jeff. People, if they go on.
I mean, just that name, Tiberius Julius Alexander.
They don't. Jeff, you know what amazes me? How many Christians, and I was, yeah, he was a Jew. Yeah. I tell people this all the time. Christianity didn't have a God. They tried two other gods prior to settling on this one. The other two gods failed miserably. Baal was one of them, and it just didn't work. But when they invented the Christ, the Christo scene, it worked perfectly. Why? Because the Jews were scattered people. The Rome made sure of that. Titus made sure of that. And so there was this God that was freely available. And there's where it started.
And Wayne, I got up in the middle of the night and wrote something down on my great whiteboard of ideas.
I love it.
Some people are going to think I've actually lost my mind, but I think you'll follow me a little bit. What I wrote down was Yahweh in quotations, because I don't think this being really is Yahweh. They're just claiming the name Yahweh. What I wrote down, Wayne, was Yahweh, a cross-dresser.
I accused him of small penis syndrome, but I like that one better.
What if it's a woman? What if it's a female entity? Think about it.
I think that's part of this whole thing. Everything that you read, even in
Patrick's God, what I was thinking about, part of that, the guy's name that Titus's second in command was
James Tiberius Kirk.
Julius Alexander, James Tiberius Kirk. Yeah. They plant these things in popular culture, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, the actor that played James Tiberius Kirk is a Jew.
That'd be true.
William Shatner is a Jewish fellow.
Boy, that was good. That'd be true.
Yeah.
So it's.
Did you see the roast of William Shatner?
Recently? No,
it was years ago. And Jason Alexander from Seinfeld comes out and he's being on ISIS. And I just want everyone to know, Captain Kirk is a Jew. It was fun.
So we get back to this whole thing of where we are today. Today in our Western culture, You and I represent, and other voices like yours and mine are the biggest threat now. The fabric of the story is unweaving. They know it. It's unweaving faster than they can stop it. And I had an he's a professor who, when I was doing this expose on Lucifer and Satan, they can't be the same character. But he said that voices like this will be the ones that they'll eventually stop.
Voices
Because
like ours?
yes, yeah. We invoke free thinking, and that's dangerous.
Yep, absolutely. 100% true. 100% true.
Do not draw attention. But yeah,
It's you know, I just don't understand this proclivity. It's like, you know, whenever you have a and someone said this isn't an original thought, but I thought it was brilliant. Whenever you have a big event and everybody wants to put, you know, when you had the French thing, the violence over there, everybody had to put a French flag on their background, and everybody has to say something. Even though there's a horrible event in the world, there's still these people that feel like they have to say, I know a lot of people just died, but don't forget me. I'm over here still.
Isn't that the truth?
Within us that makes us do that?
I don't know. I swear I don't know. I mean, I told Lynn this morning, as we were talking before we went on live here, I said, you know, every species has a right to know its origins. I mean,
Indeed.
It seems like that basic right has been taken away from us. Imagine all the confusion that would evaporate instantaneously if
virtue signaling, that's called, I guess.
Is that what that said?
I think that's what that's called.
But if we had that knowledge where we no longer had to go and assume, guess, theorize, and hypothesize, if we just knew, Jeff, it holds us back as a species. We can never go forward as far as I think we have the ability to go forward if we don't know our beginnings. And I think it's led to the greatest confusion of Homo sapiens sapiens.
I would agree with you, because if we don't know who we are, then we can never understand who we can be.
Yeah. And we get so trapped up in this thing. I mean, and you and I, there's others like us. You know, we spend a king's ransom. We search, we scour, we look for the old writings, we look for some of the best new ones. And the more you go down this thing, you look at this thing, and it all comes back to this. We don't know where we came from.
Why don't we know, Wayne?
I don't know. If ET exists, if there are extraterrestrials that live in other parts of the universe, other worlds that have learned the ability of how to travel great distances in space, if they exist, then any way you look at it, Jeff, I keep on getting this crazy feeling that in the great scheme of things, we're not that important.
And wouldn't that be the worst thing that we could find out?
That's my point. Yeah. We're not that important. We could
be rather insignificant.
I think we are.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we get trapped here. Because I think, and hear me out on this, when the transition happens from this matter body that the material degrades, we have the essence of who we are. I think many people come back because when they're shown the one path that they could go down, I think spiritually it's so scarce and they come back to this one because this is the only one they know.
Interesting. And to circle back to the plunging under the cold water, one of the things I remember, Wayne, the first time that I jumped in there, it was literally panic seized me.
You were almost having an out-of-body experience,
got
brother.
I got out of the water, and all I could say was a non-Christian word that started with an F and ended with a K. I just said it over and over and over and over.
Fornication under consent of the king?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I've now done it 5 times in a row, 5 days in a row. And now I come out of there and I'm not screaming, I'm not yelling, I'm becoming much more zen about it. And I think that it will help prepare me for when this life ends and I'm suddenly thrust out of this body. This will help me to understand, okay, this is a very similar experience. Let me gather myself, let me not be pushed and shoved and herded into a place that I don't want to go. Let me make my own decisions. I think it's going to be very helpful in that regard.
Jeff, I think you are spot on, brother. Yeah, I think you are. I mean, that's what I keep telling people on my channel, even conversations I have. I said, imagine if we could just become prepared. I still contend, Jeff, that this is the death cycle, that this can't
I agree
be
with you.
life, brother. It can't be.
I agree with you. And this is, I got pushed on this by Matt Belair, who was on The Last Stand with us last week. Not pushed, but he mentioned it and had been kicking around in my brain. And he discovered that if you do the things you fear, he was really afraid of the dark. So he would go out and start walking in the dark, start jogging in the dark. And he began to do the things that he was really afraid of. And he discovered that, and it's interesting you say it, it made him feel more alive. It brings him out of the death cycle. And that's what happens when I go under that water, Wayne. It reminds me that I am alive. And I think it does bring me alive. And it prepares me to be not only a better human, but it prepares me to be beyond a better whatever I'm going to be beyond this life. So you might want to do the fear, unless you fear, something like, I wouldn't say if you fear falling off a building, go jump off one, but you might go up and look off a high edge or something.
Well, in my youth, I had 2 great hobbies I pursued with a zeal, and that was rappelling and spelunking. And I loved rappelling. There was nothing that to me that was more thrilling than to throw myself off the edge of a dam or a cliff and rappel down. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a great time. I did that in the service a little bit. It is fun.
It is fun. It's damn cool. When I lived in Missouri, there were some caves that you could only get to rappelling down into them. And so that was always that adventure. As you know, that feeling is you see that gap below there and you're going, okay, I have to jump and throw myself in. Yeah. So it is
definitely an idea. And this thing keeps coming up, Wayne, and I've never wanted to deal with it, but it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up. I don't know if it's just a distraction, but it keeps coming up. This whole thing about the Barron Trump adventure and The Last President, those 2 books that seem to be predictive of Donald Trump and seem to possibly show some time traveling possibilities with Trump. It's just interesting. And I don't know quite what to make of it, but it won't leave my mind.
I was reading a book by an ex-spook, and he says that we conquered the time travel thing long time ago. And
that just blows my mind. I don't see how it's possible. It's very interesting.
Well, time you think is linear, and you think that time only runs in one way of a current, like a river, but time is like an electrical current. It has no flow either way. It's dependent on how it's pulled. And I contend that if we live in a 3-dimensional world, reality, time has to be 3-dimensional. You can't have a single dimension interject itself into a 3-dimensional reality.
Yeah, some people are. I was reading that it's like a grid. There's actually, you can plot 4 points.
Mm-hmm. You absolutely can. Yeah,
come and go from anywhere you want.
And isn't it odd that Gene knew that?
He did know that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He figured it out.
He just knew that. He did.
How did the freaking he know that? He knew that if you got yourself into a gravitational place where gravity is proven to be able to warp the space-time continuum, Well, then if you begin to comply that component exponentially and get that effect, yeah.
And people don't, not everybody's a Star Trek nerd, but the warp was just creating a warp bubble around the craft you're traveling in. So you were literally, they weren't traveling through space, they were traveling through time everywhere they went. They had created their own little universe in that bubble, that warp bubble. And that's how you could pass through planets and stars and all this stuff without, crashing into them, because you're in a warp bubble.
Alan Watts, the good Buddhist that he was. I love Alan. He's my mentor. He expressed a belief in Buddhism that says that the way it really is that each of us are that sphere. We are the creators of our universe. We are the creators of everything around us. We immerse ourselves into the fabric of which everyone else do, because it's the experience. We do this to keep ourselves from being bored. Boredom is the one thing a spirit cannot handle.
Is boredom, huh?
Is boredom.
That's why many people are like automatons today, Wayne, because they're so bored. There's no more challenge. There's no more real interaction with reality. They're just playing their video games and snapping their selfies. And that's why they walk around like mummies. Not mummies, but zombies.
You and I, and people laugh. I was telling this, and someone says, you're sounding like an old person. I said, why? I said, well, you go back and tell these stories that when you were a kid working out on a farm. And I go, but that's what we did. We didn't have computers. We didn't have any of this. Our imaginations were what kept us occupied.
Wayne, we are old.
No, I'm telling you, we're getting ripped off. All right. So if the Elohims decided to cut because we were created in their image, which means that we had their genetic footprint for this longevity, they changed that and now took it down to 120 years. I'm seeing people dropping dead right and left in their 60s and 70s. And I'm thinking, you're getting screwed, man. You got at least another 5 decades. 5 decades.
And by the way, William Shatner is 87 years old.
Yes, he is. And still rather vigorous, I would say. He's still got that spring. One of the
hardest working men in Hollywood.
Yeah. I marvel. The Rolling Stones are coming here in Denver in May.
I saw them in Orlando about 2 years ago, Wayne, and it was amazing. I don't know how old Mick Jagger is, but he moves like a 20-year-old.
Well, he's in his routine. He does 6 hours of ballet every day.
Wow.
And his routine. And I look at him, and then I look at someone, like Keith Richards. And I swear Keith is embalmed. I don't know. I say that jokingly, but think about it. Here is
Keith
Mick.
Richards has his routines too, Wayne.
Yeah, he does. I think he does. Although he says he can't drink anymore. He just says, man, it takes too much out of you. And I'm hearing Scotty, don't ever get drunk unless you're willing to pay the next day.
Exactly. And I'm not anymore.
So I don't know, Jeff. I think we're taught this as part of the programming that you become a senior citizen at this age. It's a make-believe age. They just arbitrarily just picked a number. We now ingrain it into our thinking. And by the way, we program our own DNA. Well, I'm going to become 65. I'm old now.
Yeah. And Wayne, sitting here now at 55, I am literally definitely in better shape than I was at 35, probably 32. I'm in better shape, better condition, better health at 55 than I am at 30, than I was at 30.
Well, there's a reason for that. I tell people this all the time. If you want to maintain your youth, I'll be 64 in June. I said, it's really what's up here. It's how and Morpheus said it best in the Matrix. We call it inner self-projecting. What do you see? You know how I see myself? I'm still the 16-year-old working with Concerts West, having my hair down the middle of my back, sweating my ass off, pulling off speakers off a tractor trailer, taking them into the auditorium. That's how I still see myself.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, it's all rock and roll.
Interesting. What are you laughing about?
Oh, someone was saying, they said, I'm one of those rockers that, we just keep on going. But hey, why is it that America, around the world, the youth no longer have the heroes that I grew up with? These were just the bands were out there. And today,
our hero, Wayne, if you had to say one hero in childhood, who was it?
The one hero in my childhood, well, I have to depend. I didn't have much of a childhood, so
yeah, that's true.
It was really a rotten childhood. I mean, I had to grow up so early.
Yeah, that's a sad thing.
But I will say this: the one person that helped me the most, and I can remember some lonely days. A person gave me a book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh, what a great book!
And there were some really bleak days as a child, and I read that book, and you know what it did? It planted seeds in me.
That book is transformational.
It is. It is. And from there, I got to know who Earl Nightingale was.
Yep.
And then Brian Tracy, and these were the men that Think and Grow Rich changed my life.
Kathy Emma says Wonder Woman. Power Vapor Supply says Richard Boone. I know who that is. Warrior Queen says the Hulk.
I love it. Way to
and
go,
Mark
Lois.
Center Saint says the one for me that, I mean, this isn't even a real person, but this literally was my hero growing up, Captain James T. Kirk.
Yeah.
Jamie Summers says Sarah Kay. If you know who Jamie Summers is, you are really old.
But she was hot.
She was.
It was like her.
Was the Bionic Woman. Lindsay Wagner played Jamie.
Lindsay Wagner. Yeah. Lonnie Anderson was another one, but I
wouldn't call her my hero, but she was motivational.
Yeah. So those were the ones that helped motivate me. I have to say, probably changed my life. It protected my life. I mean, I had so many opportunities where life could have just. Bruce Lee, that'd be it. Harrison Ford. Yeah, I didn't see Harrison Ford until I was a little bit on there. I was just in Captain Kangaroo. I love that. Well, I have to say, all right, here's one for you. I remember one of my favorite weekly shows was Commander Cody. Do you remember that? Yeah, look it up online, Commander Cody. He was the guy that had the jetpack on his back that was fighting the aliens. And this came out in 1960, 61, I believe. You're muted. Jeff, you're muted. Jeff, you muted yourself. We are
Zora
old.
Says that the Next Generation got her through a lot of depression.
Yeah, that was great writing. I enjoyed Next Generation. That was good stuff. Twilight Zone.
Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock.
How about that? That is most illogical.
But it changed us. I still say that Gene Roddenberry wasn't of our species. I think he was a triumph.
L. Ron Hubbard thinks that he stole Star Trek from him.
Well, L. Ron Hubbard got his idea directly because of the Roswell incident.
There's some people, including me, that think that Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard might have opened the portal that allowed the Roswell incident to take place.
So I read another take on this last night. I had never heard this one before, but this one makes the most sense to me of all that I have been reading on Roswell. There was a crash. They were here investigating primarily because of our entry into the atomic age. And I still contended this, Jeff, that these explosions we were doing were actually tearing the space-time fabric. Anyway, the crash did happen, but what the military didn't know was that craft had a beacon on it. Every piece of that machine, because of the way it's integrated, was a beacon. They took it to Morado Air Force Base, which is now called Edwards, and the story goes that they were pretty pissed off when the mothership that came, and guess who the mothership was in control of? The Elohim.
Oh, interesting. And this is one that what's his name? I forget his name. I invited him on the show several times. He hasn't responded. I can't remember his name, but Sterling says the Roswell incident was the Japanese POWs. It wasn't really aliens at all. Dennis Dietrich is the name I was thinking of.
Well,
Heard,
I haven't seen
him?
any of that. I've seen no evidence of that.
It's interesting. It's an interesting speculation.
You know, I grew up in a town in California called Benicia, and Benicia actually was, during the war, was the internment camp for Japanese, Portuguese, and several others. So I don't know. I know that they exploded a bomb in that desert.
Story.
Huh?
It's an interesting story, and it ties back, believe it or not, to L. Ron Hubbard, because one of the jokes about L. Ron Hubbard is he was actually a commander of not one, but two Navy ships. And during the time of World War II, they actually pulled his commission because he was firing. Well, he was actually firing on an island just for fun too. And they didn't really like him shooting weapons on an island in Mexico and somebody else's waters. But he emptied his ship of depth charges, attacking what he described as a Japanese submarine off the coast of Oregon. And I think it might have really been there.
I think it may have been. Yeah.
It didn't, and this came into me last night too in my sleep, and I'm glad that you brought it up, Wayne. Remember when Gerald Ford in the debate with Carter, Gerald Ford said that you could call back intercontinental ballistic missiles, and everybody laughed at him, and that was kind of the end of his presidency. You know what just hit me? It's true, and he just wasn't supposed to say it. They can recall those things.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't supposed to say it. That's why he got shut down. Is that possible?
I believe that. Absolutely, I do. I mean, it's like the one guy that he was on George's show and simply said, whatever you think we are at our limit in technology, he says we're 100, maybe 200 years ahead of that. Jeff?
I'm here.
Okay. I happen to think he's right. I think that, I don't know, Jeff. I know we do these shows on Sunday because I think they're fun for me, but they're stimulating. This whole thing of religion is such a control matrix. I mean, it's the ultimate control of the masses. And I still just marvel how so easily we are susceptible to their mind control.
Yep. And please subscribe to our Wayne Steiger's channel. Please subscribe to this channel. And when you leave this show today, make your voice known. If you think we sucked, give us a thumbs down. If you think we were pretty good, give us a thumbs up. Yeah, I do wonder if Ford just messed up by telling it, not messing up by messing up.
I think Reagan messed it up. I don't, we know that he was already suffering Alzheimer's at the end of his presidency. And, the famous speech that he gave before the UN talking about if we were under attack by an alien race.
Mm-hmm. But, Wayne, I met him when was it? It was the Republican convention where Buchanan gave the speech, this election's about who we are. That would have been 92, right?
I think it would have been. Yeah. Yeah, right before the Clinton.
And I met him, Reagan, and I had my daughter in my arms, and he's supposed to have had Alzheimer's and all this, but they introduced me and said, this is Jeff Daugherty, and he's got his brand new baby daughter. And without missing a beat, Reagan just says, well, I'm glad they didn't give him an old one.
Yeah, that's with Alzheimer's, they're a moment of clarity. My wife, where she's the chief medical officer in these environments. It's sad, Jeff. It really is. But there are moments of clarity, fluidity of thought, you know, quite often.
Yeah.
And I tell you, my friend, that's the one thing that I think is the worst curse upon our species is losing our minds before our bodies go.
Yeah.
I really do. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to do it is. I'm going to do a show on this because the thing that we're seeing is the ages are going down.
That's true, isn't it? Who was it? Was it Dennis Leary that said, of all the things I've lost, I miss my mind the most?
I miss my mind the most. Yeah. By the way, have you seen him in the movie The Ref?
No, I haven't.
With Kevin Spacey. Who else? It was an all-star cast. One of the best satirical, dry humor shows. It's a great movie. You have to see it. Dennis Leary and Kevin Spacey play this great role.
Kevin
check it out.
Spacey is claiming he's making a big comeback.
It's the thing that gets me. So we get onto these stars, these producers, and all this stuff for all the hanky panky they do, but that's Hollywood. It's make believe. They're adults.
You can't be against Spacey because he's gay or bisexual or whatever. Now, if he's abusing people, that's a whole nother thing. But if he's gay, so what?
Who cares? I mean, I heard the review yesterday on the Elton John movie coming out in May, and the person on Sirius Radio said, they were looking at Bohemian Rhapsody, which is up for an Academy Award. Best.
Was it any good, Wayne, that movie?
I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. I recommend it. It's a good movie. Check it out. The guy who plays Freddie Mercury did great. So the Elton John's got his coming out called Rocket Man. the DJ on the Sirius XM was saying, well, she says, the only thing I can say what the people have said who have seen the movie, who screened it, lots of music, lots of gay sex. I went, well, that's not a movie. I mean, I want to know about the person.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Circling back again, for the movie Rocket Man, will the title song be sung by William Shatner?
Oh, that would be great.
Did you ever hear that, Wayne?
I did. I heard it too.
Oh,
I'm a rocket man.
I'm a rocket man. Like, oh my.
Oh my God.
Even worse.
What does God have the need for a starship?
And there's actually an album out there too that Leonard Nimoy did, and it's not much better than Shatner's.
Yeah, Leonard Nimoy sings.
It reminds me of something that Deion Sanders told me one day. He said, Jeff, stay in your anointing. Because we were sitting there on the dais waiting for somebody who's supposed to be a preacher. They were sent up there to preach, and they started singing. And it's always the same in church. Singers want to preach, preachers want to sing. And this person was dying up there in front of all these people. And Deion leaned over to me and he said, Jeff, this just goes to show you, always stay in your anointing.
Yeah. Indeed.
Don't go out of your anointing, folks.
But I will say this about Nimoy. With his album, check out the album cover. I mean, if you want a snapshot of what the 60s was, that was it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the mod clothes, the whole bit. I mean, he so personified what that 60s movement was. You really had the ones that the beatniks that were really like the Dave Clark Five and the guys that were really the 60s movement. Then you had these other guys, the actors and the others who wanted to adapt that. And of course, they started the whole motif, and it's legendary from there.
It is legendary from there.
Interesting
stuff. And that was in the 60s, you said?
Yeah. Yep. At the album. There was a time there, I guess Leonard Nimoy couldn't find a gig. He was fortunate that he found
Shatner.
Yeah.
He was living in a van after Star Trek.
Yeah. Nimoy said that the Mission Impossible thing saved his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was good in that.
We talked about Shatner being 87 years old and being the hardest working guy in Hollywood. And I know some people that know him, and they actually said, they talked and said, "Why do you work so hard?" And Shatner got very, very serious and said, "Because I'm afraid if I stop, I'll die."
Probably right too.
So he's just working, working, working.
Hey,
87 years old, William Shatner.
isn't there something that I once heard? As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is.
Yep, some guy
Something
named
like
Jesus
that.
supposedly
Yeah,
said that.
yeah. I think somewhere I heard that. It's so true, though. I do believe that.
It is. It is. Well, Wayne, we've hit the hour mark.
Yeah, I love it.
Another hour of your life you'll never get back, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, yeah, but this one here, we planted some good seed.
That's true. And like Johann says, a rolling stone gathers no moss.
It can't. I remember when the Mythbusters did that myth, and it's
Yeah.
true. It
And I
doesn't.
hate to be so what would this be called? This is like macabre. It's bad, but I mean, what would be as bad as it would be? What would be better than for Mick Jagger to be in the middle of jumping jack flash and have a heart attack and die? What would have been better? What could be better?
Oh man, that would be traumatic.
But I mean, going out while you're doing what you love.
However, yeah, I agree with you. That's how the drummer for Boston went out.
No way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, playing the drums and boop,
No,
that was it.
no kidding. Wow. Boston was the first rock album I ever bought, the one with the spaceship on it.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, check out that album cover. Look at it closely.
I'll have to look at it closely.
Someone was channeling.
So have we ever had a big, huge star literally die on stage?
Not that I know of.
Well, let's hope not.
Yeah, that would be really traumatic. I mean, you think about that band, missed the beat.
But I wonder
But
if they'd be like R.W. Shambach, if they would just cart Mick into the back and go on and finish the show.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm going to look into that.
Shambach had a revival one time down in Texas, tent revival. Some guy died of a heart attack, in the middle of the meeting, and Shambach is on a roll, and Shambach says, "No dead corpse is going to wreck my meeting. Put him in the back."
He's dead.
The ambulance. Somehow he's dead. He's not going to miss anything. Put him in the back. And somehow, and knowing Shambach, I could understand completely how this happened. They all got off and headed down to Denny's or something and forgot about the guy.
Probably did.
Shambach's in the middle of his grand slam. He says, "Oh my Lord, what about that dead corpse?" They all run back. And the story goes, they get back there and the dead corpse is gone. And the next night he shows up at the meeting. Yeah.
Resurrection. Okay. Well, there we go. I mean, why not? Works for me. Never thought about that. I always.
What's a Sunday show without an R.W. Shambach story?
You have to have one. And speaking of that kind of worst thing, I always thought about when I was flying. I used to fly a lot.
Somebody says, "What if Boy George died on stage?" He's been doing that for years.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? But I always thought about flying, and it happens more often than people think. People die on the flights.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How would you like to have a dead corpse strapped in next to you?
I was on a flight where someone in the back passed away. And
what'd they do?
Carried on. There wasn't much you could do.
But what do you do, Wayne, if there's no empty seats?
There wasn't.
It's got a dead corpse.
There wasn't. They just put a blanket over them.
Oh, no way. Well, that's terrible.
There wasn't anything I was in first class. I was in seat 1A, and I heard the stewardess and the captain came out. And the captain said, "There's nothing we can do."
Yeah, but those airplane blankets aren't that big.
They're enough to cover the blank stare.
That's horrific. I would have to move. I'm sorry.
There was no place to put them. The people wanted to, but there,
but just I feel bad for the guy, but did I get his meal?
I think this is one of the flights that didn't.
Oh,
I
that's
just
funny.
remember sitting there and, I'm talking to the guy next to me and, it's literally, well, what do you do? I don't have, I read yesterday there was a Hawaiian flight from Maui to San Francisco and the stewardess died.
Ooh.
There wasn't
Somebody
anything they could
mentions
do.
David Soul cut an album. He actually cut two of them. I
Yeah.
bought them. They were good. They
And he
became
actually,
a #1 song.
he did a
The
duet with someone, didn't he? Who
Huh?
was it? Didn't he do a duet with someone?
I don't remember a duet, but he did have two albums, and I don't have them anymore, but I had them. They were great. He was a good singer.
Think if we kept those albums, man,
I know.
I know it.
I know.
Well, what's on you got going on your channel this week, Jeff?
Oh, we're gonna finish up diving in on the temple. We're gonna finish up talking about all gates are traps. Somebody asked me, did Paul meet Azazel on the Damascus Road? I'm gonna look into that one. That's very interesting. So
Have
yeah, we
you
got
ever read the in the Cipher, the 29th chapter of the book of Acts?
No, I have not.
Paul encountered Julius Caesar, and apparently Paul worked his magic and murdered or executed Caesar, Julius.
No kidding.
Yeah, and he also went to, they talk about him going to the Druids, spending time up with the Druids. Yeah, it's in the Cipher. If you can get I got it right here, but yeah, it's the 29th chapter. Of course, they don't put that. By the way, before we close out, speaking of angels, do they have wings or do they not?
Well, Wayne, it's funny you should ask because check this out. Check this out. Oh, shoot. Let me share this. And I can't remember. Come on, man. I can't get this thing to escape now. Can you still see me?
I see you, yes.
Well, I'm stuck. Yeah. I can't get out of here, so.
Oh. Well, anyway, the Council of Nicaea, right?
Nicaea?
Yeah. Do you know how the image of angels with wings got in?
By
3 votes.
By 3 votes.
3 votes. Yeah.
Makes sense.
The biggest debate they had on one of their sessions, most of the angels do not have wings. In fact, most theologians that said they did not. But we contaminated a view of a species that today we think that if they don't have wings, they're not angels. And everyone now sees angels with wings. Anyway.
Wow. And I finally got back. But what was the great Jewish philosopher, mathematician? I want to say Menominee. I don't think that's his name, but he drew a picture of the menorah. And I really want to show you this because it'll blow your mind. He drew this picture of a menorah, and I got to show you. Here it is. Okay. Let me share the screen here. Share. Okay, this picture, Wayne, is of a menorah. And this was drawn by this great Jewish mathematician, philosopher. And doesn't it look for all the world like a energy transmuting device? Doesn't it look exactly like an angel?
It's an energy field.
It's an energy field. That's what the menorah was in the tabernacle, in the temple. It's transmuting that adrenochrome sacrifice energy to other places.
How interesting.
Isn't that fascinating? And it looks kind of like an angel, doesn't it?
It also looks like many of the pictographs that we have in the Southwest.
Yep.
It does.
Scary stuff, huh?
Well, I've contended that if you really have a spiritual race of beings, they would manifest themselves as electricity.
Yep.
I don't know how else you would not.
And that looks just like an electrical drawing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw in that. I mean, it just went boop, I saw it.
Yep, absolutely.
Good stuff.
All right, Wayne. All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Chat room we have here. This is the best chat room on YouTube. I did say yesterday, though, they are high maintenance, but well worth it.
They're the best.
Within
Just invoking favor and all the people today, Jeff.
Stormy.
Just invoking favor and
Absolutely.
nothing missing,
Double
nothing
favor.
missing. Yeah.
Last question, Wayne. This one came up. I was waxing philosophical about whether or not Azazel is still in this realm and if he's super, super weak. And somebody said, let's call favor on him. And I said, I don't know if I want to call favor on him or if I want to flood him with balanced energy so he snaps back into phase and quits being Azazel. What would you do?
You know, the reason why I love favor is that because favor is a non-biased word. That it's one of those words that it repels negativity. Where love can be so distorted in our vernacular today, but favor has not. Favor's been one of those words that are still pristine. If I'm invoking,
so favor and flooding him with balanced energy would be the same thing.
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. Yeah.
So if he snapped back into balance, would he still be Azazel?
I mean, can a spirit be? The laws of hermetic says that all paradoxes can be solved.
Yeah, that's right. Interesting. And as Stephanie May says, intriguing. And with that, I salute all of you for being here seeking after truth. We appreciate you tuning in for not another Sunday show. And Wayne, this is some good stuff.
Jeff, I always enjoyed it. I missed last Sunday, but I look forward to it.
All right, my friend. Always good to see you. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Take care now. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.